Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here, welcome back to the railway and welcome to another train pack unboxing. So today should be a lot of fun because I have a luxury train pack to show to you today, and it is this, the Hornby Northern Belle. Now before we start, I want to say a massive thank you to Hornby for sending this over for me to review. They did that in return for a video that I did for their channel, and if you want you can check it out up there. And do me a favour and send them a comment down below to say thank you for this, because they've actually enabled us, me and you, to get a look at a train pack that ordinarily I wouldn't be able to look at. I didn't budget for this, so I wouldn't usually have been able to afford this, but thanks to Hornby we can, so thank you very much Hornby, I really appreciate that. So yeah, as you can see, this is the Northern Belle train pack, quite a luxury one as I say. It includes a class 57 inside, as you can see there in the West Coast Railways livery, which looks really smart. These are available for £149.99 from hornby.com. There's a link in the description if you're interested, or if you'd rather use a retailer, you can pick them up from Hatton's for the slightly better price of £135, and there's a link there as well. So value for money for a 4-piece set. There's 3 coaches and 1 loco inside there. Value for money at this point sounds absolutely fine, but we're going to get this out and find out for sure. So here we go, the Northern Belle. So it's actually been a little while, hasn't it, since I've done a train pack. I've done quite a few train sets over recent years, but not so many packs. So the front of the pack, as you can see, shows you what we get inside here. We've got the 3 coaches and the 57 looking really good. Can't wait to see those. Down at the bottom, you've got a bit of history of the Northern Belle, and it also tells you a little bit about what you get inside the pack. And if I turn the box over, yep, you can see we've got another image of what you get inside. And then down at the bottom, that's probably what you're interested in, is the R number. It's R3697 if you want to look this up, and it is of course the Northern Belle train pack. Okay, so let's get this out then and see what this is like. I've not actually opened this up yet, I only got it yesterday at the time of filming, so this is definitely going to be my first look. Are you ready? Okay, man, it seems like a long while since I've opened one of these Hornby train pack boxes. Okay, so lift the lid. Okay, so the first thing you'll notice is that this is packaged in an egg box, or the egg box style packaging as I've called it in the past. Obviously it's a bit more environmentally friendly than the sort of polystyrene that they used to use, but also it doesn't really do a good job of protecting more fragile and detailed models. So Hornby's use of this packaging to me indicates that the loco and coaches don't have a lot of fragile details that would be easily broken off, otherwise the packaging would have to be slightly better. And I would say it'd be quite reasonable for the price, provided they're not super duper basic. So here we have the Locomotive, class 57, Windsor Castle. Looks really good in this livery. Shall we get it out? I don't think I had any instructions with this, whether they just didn't put those in for whatever reason. I don't know if this was a sample of theirs or not, but yeah, I don't seem to have any instructions, but nonetheless, here we go. Let's take this one out. Now this does look to me very much like a railroad locomotive. It is very light, not a lot of weight to it at all. I can see that only 1 bogie is driven, and it does have traction tyres on, so just to be clear, you're not buying a super detailed locomotive. However, if you do the maths, if we assume that the coaches are worth about £25 each, you're only really paying 60 quid for the loco. And yes, even though it is clearly a railroad style loco, whether the 47 or 57 has actually been in the railroad range, I'm not entirely sure. But despite that, you can see that the livery, at least, has been enhanced very slightly, and the same seems to be true with the coaches. So let's have a look at the first coach, Chatsworth. I'm familiar with Chatsworth. It's a lovely place, not too far from me. We tend to go there at Christmas. And as you can see, yeah, these have been made to look like Pullman cars, even though I think they are Mark IIs, I believe. So yeah, this is beautiful. Once again, it is very basic. I can see that it does have metal wheels, which is a good thing, although it doesn't have NEM couplings, as you can tell. This has the sort of ex-Airfix / Dapple type coupling. Yeah, really, I don't know how suitable that is. Really, you'd expect sort of NEM standards these days on everything. That would be better. But the decoration looks to be really good, and I actually love the look of that coach. It looks really good, does that. So yeah, I'm guessing this train's going to look really good when we get it running. Here's the next one. This is Warwick. I don't know whether this would be named after Warwick Castle or what, but it is a similar model. As you can see, it may well be the same thing for all I know. I'll have to compare them in a little while. But as I say, the decoration looks fine. You can see these springs on the bogies have been picked out. Yeah, they're not really railroad coaches. Their mouldings certainly are, I would say. Whether or not these have actually appeared in the railroad range, again, like the Loco, I'm not sure. But the decoration, I would certainly say, is superior than the railroad-esque detail, which is good. And then finally, we have the brake in the bottom there, which is known as Malcop, or Cowmop, as I first read it. That would have been a better name, I would have said. Okay, there we go. Very slightly different, obviously. Yeah, that one's the brake, but they do look fantastic. So what I think we will do is I will show you a close-up of the Loco, and we'll take a close look at that, and then probably just one of the coaches to give you a sense of the level of detail. Yeah, the level of detail at first glance looks to be very, very basic indeed. It is admittedly a little bit below what you'd expect from a Hornby Railways train pack. I think we have seen better ones in the past, but like I say, the decoration does seem to make up for it. So with that, we'll have a little history on the Northern Belle, and then we'll take a close look. So the Northern Belle was a luxury train service that began in the year 2000 with a run from York to Grantham. The train featured newly refurbished XBR Mark II coaches with interiors redesigned to look like luxury Pullman cars, I think from the Orient Express. They had the elegant wood panelling, modern lighting, new seating, all the stops had been pulled out really, and a variety of different locomotives had been used for the train over time, including the Class 57. The BR Class 57 was first introduced way back in 1964 when 512 locomotives were built by Brush Traction, and they were initially classified as the Class 47, of course. Beginning in the late 1990s, 33 of the class were re-engineered, still by Brush Traction, the same company, to include newly refurbished engines and alternators in order to bring them back up to modern standards, presumably. And this example, number 57601, is, I'm told, still in running order today. Okay, so there is the Hornby Class 57 Windsor Castle up close and personal for you, and I think in this livery it looks fantastic. I really do like this. However, it does seem as though my first impression was pretty much accurate. We do seem to have a really, really basic model on our hands here, and I'll talk more about that in just a second. In terms of value for money, I think that is quite reasonable. I don't think we've got a problem value for money wise. I mean, for instance, this only costs around £25 more than the 156 pack from Hornby did. And for the extra £25, you actually get 3 coaches rather than just one. So I personally think the price tag is about right. It's certainly not a bargain, but it's not unreasonable either. Perhaps less reasonable though is this train pack's placement in the Hornby Railways range, because obviously people buying this expecting to get it home and see a Hornby Railways type locomotive, instead you're going to find a Loco inside which is more akin to the Railroad Plus range, and incidentally I think this would be better suited to that. Now, to Hornby's credit, this is not just a reskinned Class 47 as I expected it to be, obviously the two classes being very, very similar. I've compared it with my Railroad 47 and there do seem to be differences. However, with a bit of research, it seems Lima produced a Class 57. It does seem that this Loco uses the Lima body, obviously just with a bit better decoration and a slightly different mechanism. But to be clear, the decoration is very good, I must say. First of all though, let's talk about the weight. This Loco is extremely light, it must be said. I've weighed this in at 244 grams, which is only 40% of the weight of the Bachmann Class 45, which is only slightly larger. That is way less than half the weight. It's very, very light. It's definitely going to need those traction tyres. Let's take a look at some of the details then. Basically, most of the detail is all part of the moulding. So if we look at the handrails on the sides of the doors there, you can see, while they are picked out, which is great to see, they are all just moulded on. Unlike modern diesel Locos, all of the grills and such are not etched, they're all just a part of the moulding. And while some of them are very convincing, I think the fans here look absolutely wonderful, don't they? While they do look convincing, none of them are etched or separately fitted. The same thing goes on the ends. As you can see, we don't have any working lights in here. We just have little painted parts where the lights would usually go. No LEDs or anything like that. The wipers on the windscreens are just painted onto the actual glazing pieces, just moulded on, which is okay, I guess, but not what you'd expect from a Hornby Railways Loco. And the buffers are separately fitted. I believe they hold the body on, in fact, or they used to with the Lima ones, but they're plastic and they're not sprung or anything like that. They are really quite basic. Inside the cabs, there's not an awful lot of detail going on. There is a bit of moulded detail, which is good to see, but none of it's painted, as you'd probably expect by this point. And the bogies, of course, are quite simple. They are just moulded pieces, although as you can see, the axle boxes have been picked out in the yellow paint, which helps them to look a little bit better. On the plus side, we do have all glazed windows on the model, which looks pretty decent. They're not flush with the outside surface of the Loco body or anything like that, but they don't look terrible. As I've already hinted though, the decoration is pretty strong with these. As you can see, we've got the pretty fine West Coast Railways logo there, which does look excellent. The nameplate Windsor Castle is nicely applied. It's not etched or anything like that, but it is at least high quality. And we've got some really impressive little details, such as the warning signage going on there. We have an array of information about the Loco printed on very, very small. I'm not even sure if the close-up will show you what that says, but no doubt they're legible, and we do have a shed code as well. Running numbers and that sort of thing, all sorts of little painted details underneath the doorways and such. The roof is done really quite nicely. You've got different components picked out in different colours, which helps them to stand out. The decoration is definitely better than you'd expect from a Hornby Railroad Loco, but of course the level of detail, the weight, and as we're going to see soon, the mechanism are all pretty typical of very basic railroad locos. But as I say, for about £60, this is more or less on point. Like I said, it's not a bargain by any means, but it's certainly not unreasonable in my opinion. Let me know, would you pay £60 for this or would you not? I personally am on the fence a little bit. I don't think it's terrible, but it's not great either. I should say that unlike the coaches, the Loco does actually have NEM couplings. It has the slightly wider tension locks fitted, but they are NEM, so you can exchange them, which is different to the coaches, which do not have NEM couplings, which again is a bit inconsistent, isn't it? But here's one of the coaches coming up now. The level of detail is similar, but I will show you some close-ups. So here's the brake then, cow mop. I would say actually that these are slightly better in terms of detail than the Loco. Now most of the detail is still just moulded on. As you can see, all of the handrails and such are just moulded on, painted of course, but definitely moulded on. But the attention to detail in most areas seems to be a little bit better, a little bit higher quality. So the glazing, for example, as you can see, has been painted up. We haven't just got clear glazing on those. There's a little bit of paint going on there. Around the back you can see all the doorways are nicely moulded and there are lots of painted details going on there. The bogies once again look pretty good. I would say the detail is a little bit more finely moulded on these, and as I've already noted, the springs are picked out on the bogies, which is good. There's a fair amount of underframe detail, most of it just moulded, but some of it looks pretty convincing, particularly these little fans. That looks really, really good. There is quite a degree of interior detail. These are not just empty coaches. You can see seats and tables fitted on the inside, which I think would be quite typical, I guess, of a luxury coach. The decoration is excellent as well. You've got this coat of arms of some description there. Hopefully the close-up will show us more on that. You've got the Malcop. I keep wanting to say cow mop now. I can't get that out of my head. But as you can see, the application of that is just perfect, as is the Northern Belle lettering across the top, which actually looks really, really crisp and well done. Far beyond what you'd expect from a railroad coach. So the detail is basic, but better, I would say, on the coach, and a lot more like it in terms of value for money and what you'd expect from a Hornby Railways train pack. Okay, so let's get all of this stuff down onto the track. I'll get the Loco tested, we'll get it running, and then of course we'll put the entire train together and see how it looks when it's all assembled. So there it is then, the Hornby Class 57 down onto the track, looking pretty excellent actually, ready for the first test. As always, I've tried to be as fair as possible with this one. I do think the level of detail, while very, very basic, was justifiable or perhaps even forgivable for the relatively low price. But in my opinion, the mechanism is less so for a Hornby Railways locomotive. I'm going to stick with the opinion that the mechanism on board here is certainly not acceptable for a Hornby Railways locomotive, or really any locomotive for any price. So we'll start positive, because there are certainly some positives with the mechanism here. First of all, it has a good quality 5-pole motor on board, which is pretty good. The second positive is that it does have all-wheel pickup, which is pretty good. So every single wheel on the model is able to pick up power, which means that reliability at the very least should be very, very good. However, of 6 axles on this locomotive, 12 wheels, only 4 of them are driven, only 2 axles are driven, which obviously isn't very good by modern standards. And as a result of only 2 axles being driven, combined with the light weight of the model, they are also fitted with traction tyres. There are 2 rubber tyres fitted onto this model, which are not very good. And if you want to know more about why I don't like traction tyres, check up the video in the top right now. This is a classic example of a model being given traction tyres to make up for its really light weight. Inside, it's not that great either. As you can see, it is copiously lubricated, an awful lot of lubrication going on there, but there are no proper bearings on the wheel set. They do just sit into the chassis there, which is only acceptable because the chassis is made of plastic, which in itself isn't a very good thing. So yeah, for a Hornby Railroad Loco, it would be just about okay for a railroad price, but having been put into the railways range, I would expect the mechanism to be better. And yes, it doesn't have lights or anything like that either, which obviously is not up to modern standards. However, some of this may be forgivable if the Loco itself runs and is able to pull a reasonable amount. So let's give it a little test and see what the crawl is like straight out of the box. I do think that the folks at Hornby have run this themselves. I don't know if this has appeared in some of their videos and such, because the traction tyres did look a little bit dirty, but the wheels themselves look perfectly clean, so we'll see. It is possible, though, that this has already been run in, so either way, there's no way of telling, so let's do this and see. Giving it some juice right now. There we go, it's moving. Not terribly smoothly or slowly, it must be said, but it does work, which is a plus at this point, I would say. Yeah, it does seem to be reasonably smooth at the higher speeds, although that is not a high speed. Let's set that to, yeah, that's 50% speed. Cool, blimey. So the gearing suggests a bit of an issue there. In fact, if it's running that fast at medium speed, that might explain why it's unable to do much of a crawl. In fact, that is about the best we can do for a crawl, and even there, as you can see, it keeps stopping. Not because it's cutting out, just because the motor stalls. Yeah, the gearing leaves a lot to be desired, actually. So yeah, mechanically it's a bit of a letdown, unfortunately. No lights, not a great mechanism, only 2 driven axles and traction tyres. Yeah, it's not great, in fact, certainly not. Oh dear, not to worry. So we'll get this running. I'll set it to half speed, make sure it's running before I couple up the coaches, which is what I'd recommend always with Locos. And we'll see how it looks as it runs around, shall we? Oh, blimey. So yeah, at 50% speed, this definitely goes hell for leather, to the point where it's a little bit scary. Might have to slow it down in a second. It is reliable on the points and everything, though, because of all the pickups. And I suppose you do have to question how important is it that an express passenger Loco like this can crawl. Probably not very, but it would have been nice to see a bit better performance at these slow speeds, of course. Anyway, we'll leave it to run, and I'll come back to you after it's running, and maybe its crawl will be slightly better, but I doubt it. Okay, the bat out of hell has now been run in. And yeah, I can't say there was any problems, never a derailment, never any stuttering or anything because of all the pickups. The performance seems to be okay, if not for the obviously high speed and the poor crawl, although maybe the crawl will be better, so let's try that again. Here we go. Okay, watch carefully, I'm going to turn this up real slow. Okay, that's the speed at which it started, and as you can see, it's not terribly controlled. A little bit jerky, unfortunately, and not terribly slow. But if I allow it to carry on, you should see that it gets over the express points without any problems. I'm hoping that's going to be true and not going to embarrass me. Come on. I'm not sure which bogey's the driven one at this point. It's hard to tell, isn't it? But as you can see, yeah, even though it's stuttering along, it is managing it. And it hasn't stopped yet, but we'll see the dead zone is right there if you're interested, or if you can't see, rather. I don't know if anyone's actually interested. Okay, are we nearly there? Just make sure the last wheels are over. Okay, so there we go, point proved, hopefully. Yes, it is good and reliable at the very least. Anyway, I've set up the 3 coaches, which I must say are very, very attractive. They look fantastic, don't they, in fact. They're reasonably freewheeling, the metal wheels are good, I really like the quality of that. So let's get the 57 to couple up to them and see if the couplings behave themselves, although I must say they did on the coaches. So let's just check the Locos the same. It doesn't seem as though there's any flywheel involved in this mechanism, so you do have to take it easy when you're slowing up and speeding down, because it will all be quite sudden. Have the couplings engaged? Yes, they appear to have, so let's pull away and see. Okay, that is good. Right, we'll set those off then at a reasonable speed. I've gone for about 25 on the controller, which is, well, go a bit more because it's express. There we are, that looks a bit better. Anyway, on the other lines, I have some more Hornby train packs to show you. The first one is the Excalibur Express. In the sidings, though, I've got some diesels, some Hornby diesels, so see if you can spot which ones those are and see if you can spot an odd one out. There goes the Excalibur Express, probably a superior train pack in my opinion, although the coaches are quite basic with that one. And then on the inside line, we have the Super Sprinter, the RAF liveried one, the 156 it is. I do think the Northern Belle trumps this one, basically in all areas, particularly value for money and detail. Yes, I do think the Northern Belle is a better buy than that at the very least. Alright, enjoy the running session. So there you have it then folks, the Northern Belle. And from any sort of distance, it must be said, this looks stunning, doesn't it? It really does. And even given all of the downfalls of this, I do think the price for this is at the very least reasonable. It's not amazing, it's not terrible, but certainly reasonable. So overall, it's not a bad train pack. I really do quite like it, in fact. But obviously, do be aware, despite what the packaging suggests, it is quite a basic set, that must be said. And as you can tell at this speed at least, it's performing well. Yeah, can't fault the performance at anything beyond the crawl really. Yeah, it's fine. And very powerful too, the Loco. I actually measured 0.8 newtons of pulling force from the Loco, which is enough to haul 45 coaches. So yeah, can't fault that. Obviously I don't condone the traction tyres, but they do make the Loco a good and powerful one, whereas it certainly wouldn't be without the tyres. Oh yes, there we've got the Excalibur Express. That one does have a tendency to steal the show, I reckon. What do you think? Yeah, nice pack that one, very nice. So here are some of my ratings then for the Hornby Northern Belle train pack. The level of detail was a little bit of a disappointment. The decoration was good, but besides that, yeah, not a lot to see really. The Loco I would have given 2 stars because it was very, very basic indeed. Mostly all, well, nearly all moulded details really. None of your modern luxuries. The coaches were a lot better. They had a bit better interior and some of the details were slightly better. I would have given the coaches 3 stars. So I've split the difference and gone for 2.5 star. Not amazing, but not terrible. The performance isn't exactly astonishing either. The slow crawl leaves a lot to be desired and it does run very, very fast even at medium speeds. It is, however, very reliable and pretty powerful as well, which brings us on to the power. I measured 0.8 newtons of pulling force with this, which is enough to haul around 45 coaches on straight and level track. To me, that is pretty darn good for a Loco like this, so that has to be applauded, I would say. The mechanism, though, has to be 2 stars. Now, I've given 1 star for all-wheel pickup, which is pretty good, and I've given another star for the 5-pole motor. Everything else about the mechanism is a bit of a letdown, though, because obviously it has no bearings, a plastic chassis, it doesn't have any LEDs or anything like that, it's very light, and of course it uses the rubber traction tyres. Not a great mechanism. The quality I've given 4 star. Generally the build quality is really, really good, can't fault the build quality. However, the weight of the Loco leaves a lot to be desired. At 244 grams, it is very light indeed. Value for money though, now on RRP, this seems a little bit expensive, although comparatively speaking you can do much worse. For example, this monstrosity here is £10 more expensive on RRP. And when you think you can get the entire train pack here, 3 coaches and an engine, if the Loco and coaches were truly Hornby Railway standard, it would of course be a bargain, but as it is, this is no bargain, but it's also no rip-off either. Overall then, that is 6.69 out of 10, not a great score, but I don't think it's a terrible train pack. Into the Loco logbook it goes. There we go, 15th, just above the Bachmann 43XX and below the Great Western Dapol railcar. Generally speaking then, if you have a special interest in the Northern Belle, I can recommend this train set. Although if you're just looking for a good train pack, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this one, although you can do worse, as I've noted. So let me know then folks, either way, would you pay $135 for this? I think I would, just about, but only because it comes with 3 coaches. I think if it came with 2, it would have to be a no. But as it stands, yeah, just about, I think this is probably worth it. So there you have it then, good folks, that is the Northern Belle from Hornby, and I enjoyed it. Yeah, that was really good to look at, and again, thank you very much to Hornby for sending this over, really appreciate that. For now though folks, I hope you enjoyed it as well. Thank you for watching, thanks for your time, and I will see you on the next one. Cheers everyone, have a great week.